And some of the regulatory mechanisms have been very, very difficult, in fact. I had conducted a meeting on Delhi ACP once, and there was a person, an IIT graduate, who had innovated on a Delhi ECG, but he said that it was so difficult to get it through BSIR, which was the agency which was supposed to certify it at that time, and he could not commercialize it. So I think I would totally agree with what was said by Matt, that we should not kill innovation by these regulatory mechanisms, and we should encourage things which are happening. We are also working on some e-health centers, which are intermediates between, say, civil dispensaries and our institute, which is a tertiary care institution, and from the consultations would come from periphery to our place, and we have been giving expert opinions from tertiary care physicians who are doctorates or DMs or consultants in PGI for people who are residing in different parts of Punjab. We are connected with 23 district hospitals as well as civil dispensaries. So there also EMR, which is being used, is called eSanjeevani, which has been developed by our partner CDAC, Mohali. And they are now going to make it video enabled so that one can have video consultations also on that EMR. So these are some of the things which we have been doing, and my main this thing is that we should have something on health technology assessment also in the document which we are going to produce, because that will strengthen the policies which we will do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. May I ask Wim to share? He's an expert in standards and he's here listening. I don't know, though, understanding all that we have talked. So, your views?
Yeah, if I listen, then indeed a lot of the specific Indian context I miss here and there, but knowing the other workers, I know a little bit about rural areas, so yeah. I think one of the challenges will be to, on one hand, make that leapfrog and take the standards and the knowledge that is available and make that next step. And that is indeed where innovation shouldn't be killed. Because innovation, if you take that out, then you won't come ahead and you won't make that big step. I think there are several analogies that you could use. One we were discussing over tea is about the railroad systems. If you look in the US and also in Europe, in the starting days there were a lot of railroad companies. And even they had standardized on the tracks, they wouldn't have grown. Because it's the service that makes you a good company, and not the fact that you use that same infrastructure. And I think for a lot of standards also, it's the same. A standard for me is an infrastructure that you use, and it's something which is established. And it's not something where you can differentiate. So the differentiation comes where you see your new business opportunities, your added value, big data, the analysis, the showing the data, making it visible, making it useful for the user, is where you as a company can differentiate. How you get the data, like using the Continua framework, is something which can be standardized, so that you're not bound to only your own products, but really can use Fitbits, telephones from everybody, basically because the data stream is coming in. What you need to add is your added value of knowledge, how to use that data. And so that's, I think, one of the challenges to see how can I differentiate what is my added value as a company, and so what is my innovation that I can bring in. At the same moment, you also have indeed, and I think I heard it a couple of times, you need guidance from the government. You need laws where they say, okay, this you can do and this you can't. Because that definitely privacy, security are things where you can't add. You need to make sure that that is done in a good way. And then at a certain moment, standards will go up. Because the moment that you say, okay, this is now present in all products, then there's a value in standardization, and not early. because then you make the next step. What is the next step of innovation? What is the next step of added value? And that is, I think, the challenge continuously, because also we as Philips, known as an innovative company, it's constantly the challenge in when do we step in standardization and when do we keep it for ourselves, because we have the added value, we have the business model to have that extra push to develop this product. You can't develop products if you don't have even that small margin. You need that margin that is profitable. And that is where the innovation comes from. And when that's done, then you can slowly say, yeah, now at a certain moment, now it's more beneficial for me to come to an agreement with GE, with Siemens, with Hitachi, Toshiba, if I look at the healthcare area, on how we do that basic stuff. Because there we now more or less have all come to that same level of knowledge, same level of service, and then it's making much easier if we can share data, if we can use each other's technologies easy, and in that way make it indeed cheaper again and beneficial to make that next step in innovation. So that is, I think, the challenge for India also, to see what can we use from the rest of the world, knowledge of the rest of the world, and where can we make that jump to go over the knowledge of the rest of the world and really add new things. And yes, I've seen and I heard of a lot of good startups. Being in Bangalore, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of small companies, and you see a lot of things happening there. And that is, on one hand, based on standards, and on the other hand, the freedom that standards still give you to build on top of it. That is, I think, one of the most important things to keep that in mind. Indeed, don't kill innovation by standardizing too hard, because it's standard. A standard doesn't bring you money today. A standard, if you should define it today, but it will only bring you money in 3-4 years. Today you will feel it as an investment which doesn't bring you, and only when you are far ahead in time you will see the benefit of having one model for data exchange and not earlier. And that's a constant battle, because company-wise also, it's an investment which you need to believe in.
I think Wim has already mentioned a lot of things from our conversation over tea, but I can fully support what he said, and want to just reinforce indeed that standards benefit actually the little ones, the SMEs. The big players, think only of Apple, they can afford building an ecosystem that is proprietary, that locks people in and locks them with golden handcuffs. The big players, many big players in healthcare IT, the big EHR vendors, for example, they have no interest in standards because they sell you a shiny product, and once you've signed the dotted line, you're hostage, and you can only escape that prison if you pay very dearly. An investment in standard, as Wim said, is an investment in future-proof technology, which and whose benefits you will not necessarily realize right away. And it is an investment and a platform on which SMEs can thrive. So particularly, and buried in some of my slides that I wasn't able to go into detail this morning, which is fine, was the observation that if you invest in standards that are international, an Indian startup that builds for a infrastructure here in India can then needlessly, seamlessly also go abroad and sell their products there. And that, I think, is something incredibly valuable, particularly for an up-and-coming country like India, with lots of potential and lots of innovation.
Yeah, because one of the things we noticed there, that we made a couple of products specifically more or less dedicated for India and Southeast Asia. And then, surprisingly, Germany, Europe, America was very interested. And that was basically because of the price point. Because India and the whole Southeast Asia requires a low price point. And that means taking out a lot of the gadgets which a lot of people don't use. It's one of the things I heard lately, people who go back to the Nokia phone, the standard phone which can call somebody instead of having all the other extras. And the moment you realize that you have a lot of extras which you don't use, makes it a different price point. And if you then, on the other hand, say, also in the West, price is getting more and more important. So building something which is indeed having India, Southeast Asia in mind, doesn't lock you out for the rest of the
On
world.
the contrary, if anything works in India, it will work in the rest of the world. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
So,
Rajan, just a quick point on this. Vibhav, yes.
yeah, because I actually was thinking it's Sanjay Sood and Gisela from GE.
No, that's okay. So just a point on the standard one. I think the point well made in terms of the international standards. Any Indian manufacturer, what we have observed is that obviously, you can't really survive just on the basis of demand you have in India. You have to go for other countries, right?
Right, yeah.
And so I think it is very important for government to think, do we want to create India mark for the sake of creating it, or is there a need to create one? So my discussion with Mr. Sinha in the morning, right? We have created something called IC MAT, which is the India mark kind of a thing. Question comes is, if I have to export, anyways I have to take a ISO standard, ISO compliant, one. Second thing is, if I have to export to US, I have to get a FDA mark any which way. If I have to export to UK, I have to get C mark any which way. Now, how does inventing a separate India mark, while there is a parallel CDSCO approval is required to sell in India? So I can't sell my device in India if I don't have a CDSCO approval. So what are we creating these standards for? They are they are kind of acting as a barrier going forward. So today it feels very fancy that we have created an Indian standard, and I as an Indian would like to have something called Indian standard. But then, is it solving purpose? Is it like in line with ease of doing business, what Prime Minister is talking about? So I think that is something which is to be
So I think before if you read the policy word, it talks about harmonization.
Absolutely.
I think it is very clearly laid out, and I think this is what it will get through.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, because those people
Sure.
haven't spoken, Sanjay Sood is from CDAC. He's done excellent work. This is one of the organizations which is not so market selling, but has excellent products, and I think they have some real innovative. Like Sanjay, if you can share your views on this, and after that, Gisela from GE.
Sure, sir. We've been into telemedicine and we've developed